As we begin our service, I invite you to close your other windows or apps and devices. Take a deep breath and center yourself for worship. We begin by calling forth the ancestors and descendants. We call forth the ancestors, the people who made each of us, the biological ancestors, spiritual ancestors, teachers, and guides. We call forth those who imagined and made our congregation, this congregation, possible, and who have sustained it up to this present day. We open and welcome to the ancestral people of this land and acknowledge that our church, like all of Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoac tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing with the people of this land, whose bodies and spirits live on in their descendants, the present day members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Patawomac Indian Tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. With this, let us open to the longings and hopes of all the descendants of all nations, that we might live for them today and honor the ancestors as we move toward healing.
Hey, Charlie, get out of there.
Shall one day know full justice.
Well, good morning. Whether you're a longtime member or a newcomer or something in between, welcome. We welcome you to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church live stream worship service. I'm Jim Gerard, and I'm happy to be your worship associate this morning. Accotink UU Church is a welcoming and inclusive community that seeks to create a more just and compassionate world. We are all welcome here in this justice-seeking, earth-healing community of faith. You are welcome no matter who you love, no matter your identity or heritage, no matter your beliefs or background, no matter your means or ability, you are welcome here in this religious community. If you're new to Accotink and would like to talk more about this church, please be sure to reach out to me, our minister, Rev. William Levwood, or one of today's greeters using the chat box. On our website, www.accotinkuu.org, you can check the online order of service in the worship section. While you're on the website, be sure to check the events page for the upcoming virtual gatherings and other good news. After the service, we encourage all of you, newcomers, longtime members, friends, to join us for fellowship and conversation during our virtual coffee hour. We're so delighted that you're here, and we welcome you. Welcome.
My name is Liam, and I will be doing the Chalice Lighting today. We light the chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the loving heart. This is the church of the helping hands.
The Invisible Boy, written by Trudy Ludwig, illustrated by Patrice Barton. Can you see Brian the Invisible Boy? Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. Nathan has problems with what Mrs. Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside too much. Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. When the bell rings for recess, Mika and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball teams. The best players get picked first, then the best friends of the best players, then the friends of the best friends. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. "We've got enough players for each team," he tells the others. "Let's play ball." In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party. The rope swing over the pool was awesome, says JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, adds Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. I'm so glad you guys had fun, says Madison. Everybody did except Brian. He wasn't invited. At choosing time, while the other kids play board games and read, Brian sits at his table doing what he loves to do best. He draws fire-breathing dragons scaling tall buildings, space aliens locked in intergalactic battles, greedy pirates digging for treasure, and superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. On Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student, to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made up their minds yet. At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. "What's that?" asks Madison as she points at Justin's food. "It's bulgogi." Bul what? Bulgogi. It's Korean barbecued beef. My grandma made it for me. It's really good. Do you want to try some? There's no way I'd eat bulgogi. And the kids laugh. All of them. That is, except Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. Justin, I thought the bulgogi looked good. Brian. At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing away. You're Brian, right? Yeah. Thanks for the note. Hey, Justin, Emilio calls out from the tetherball court. You're up next. Sorry, I gotta go, says Justin. By the way, that's a really cool drawing, he adds before taking off. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asks the kids to team up in twos or threes for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off. Brian heads toward Justin. I'm already with Justin, says Emilio. Find someone else. Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. Mrs. Carlotti said we can have up to 3 people in our group. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio, let him work with us. Okay, I guess. Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in that photograph. Use your imagination and have fun. Whoa, cool, says Emilio. What kind of people do you think would live in houses like that? I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story, says Justin. Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen. It's lunchtime again, Brian's least favourite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else, but him. Brian, he hears someone shout. Hey Brian, over here. Brian turns and sees Justin waving him over. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all.
Hi, excuse me. My name is Allie Mills, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. Today, we shared the story of the invisible boy. In the story, Brian was the invisible boy. Nobody ever seemed to notice him or include him in their group or game or invite him to their birthday party until the new kid, Justin, comes to class. This story really speaks to that lonely child, the one who doesn't make waves or draw attention to himself, but silently wishes that someone, anyone, would see him as real, a real person with ideas and thoughts and opinions. I don't know if you noticed, but in the beginning of the story, Justin was an all gray, but once he started to get noticed and people would speak to him, that he started to get seen in color. By building bridges of connection, you can help people feel like they're seen in color as well, not just in gray. In our craft bag today for our October crafts, I hope you had time to pick them up. If not, they'll be available all month. So feel free to swing by if you didn't get a chance to do that yet. So our crafts today is about building bridges, kind of like this one I built this morning really quick. Just like in the story, Brian and Justin built a bridge of friendship and welcoming. I have included supplies to make a popsicle stick bridge, like this one. It's a fun project for older kids, and adults too. But younger kids can also use it for imaginary play, when they have their stuffed animals or their friends over, and they can actually, work on building those bridges of friendship. I encourage you also to reach out to someone in need. You can be the person to build that bridge of connection. There's so many ways you can do this. You can make a card, or a phone call, or invite someone to lunch, even over Zoom. Invite someone to sit with you in the cafeteria or play during recess, or maybe welcome a new visitor today during coffee hour. Maybe take that time to chat with the lonely neighbor. Sometimes building bridges means making apologies and offering forgiveness. So think about ways in which you can reach out to those people who might need a little bit of connection, and start by building that bridge today.
This is a reading entitled A Place of Belonging and Caring by Kimberly and Tomzek Carlson. It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you, there is a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so you began seeking a beloved community, a people that does not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to possibilities of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. Welcome home.
Welcome home. How many of us need to hear that? How many of us desperately need to hear that? To be welcomed home, to belong. There is an epidemic of loneliness in this nation and in so much of the world. And the epidemic of loneliness has been made worse by the coronavirus pandemic. But it's been growing for a long time now, increasing at a rapid pace over the last 50 years. I love the story of the invisible boy. It captures in a simple but compelling way that I think we all can relate to that experience of loneliness, that experience of isolation, of invisibility. I love the story of the invisible boy, but as much as it paints the portrait of loneliness, invoking the feeling with undeniable clarity and poignancy, it also misses something crucial. There is an epidemic of loneliness. This is the story behind the portrait of loneliness, that there isn't only one invisible person or even only two. The room is full of invisible people. Recent studies reveal loneliness is a common feeling for 2/3 of Americans. And half of those people, or 1/3 of all Americans, qualify as severely lonely. That's about 20 people who are experiencing severe loneliness here in this gathering right now. And that's up from about 20% before the pandemic. So even before the pandemic, 1/5 of Americans were severely lonely. Now, there isn't much variation in that proportion based on race or ethnicity or income. There are some studies that suggest that loneliness is most pronounced among the young, ages 15 to 24, among the very old, those above age 80, and among mothers of young children. But loneliness can find us at any age and in just about any circumstance. There is an epidemic of loneliness and it's growing. I think it's important to say at this point that loneliness is a systemic problem. That's important. As society has changed, as more and more people, especially older people, are living alone, as the numbers of close friendships has decreased, loneliness has been on the rise. So it's important to name the systemic nature of the loneliness epidemic. If you feel lonely, it isn't because of some kind of character flaw. Loneliness is a systemic problem. And often we don't like to grapple with systemic issues. They feel big. It's hard to know how to address them. What can we do about it? It can be easier to chalk up the problem to a few bad apples. We have this tendency to focus on the individual, on the apple, even though we know the apple is dependent on the health of the tree, which is dependent on the surrounding environment, the composition of the soil, the sun, on having just the right amount of rain. And yet we often talk about systemic issues like racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, issues like loneliness, as if these are problems stemming from individuals. When we design our interventions focusing on individuals, when the truth is there's a system, a network of behaviors and policies that are causing and perpetuating these problems, we don't get to the root of it. This is why we had a discussion last Sunday about critical race theory, because it's disciplines like critical race theory that look at the systemic causes of societal problems. It's disciplines like that that give us the tools to dismantle these problems at their roots, at the structural level. So to address loneliness at the systemic level, we need to weave social networks back into how we organize ourselves. Now, a congregation can't do that for the whole society all on our own, but we can advocate for changes in the right direction. And we can be a model of a community that makes a point of weaving a social network that embraces and cares for everyone. According to the Making Caring Common project from the Harvard Graduate School of Education, there is much that each of us can do to model and help make concern for others, including concern for those who are lonely, a prevalent social norm. We should ask ourselves if we are alert to whether people in our orbit are in pain, including suffering from loneliness. We can commit to reaching out once a week to someone we think may be lonely or someone we just haven't connected with in a while. We can recognize that any true morality means helping others, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard, and reach out to lonely people, even when they are needy, critical, or self-deprecating in ways that may be irritating and alienating. End quote. We often emphasize that Unitarian Universalism is a covenantal faith. This is what it means to be covenantal. It isn't a shared belief that brings us together. It's our shared commitment to being a caring community, to being a people committed to widening the circle and reaching out to the most vulnerable. And I'm not saying you haven't been doing this. I know that you have been doing this, especially during the pandemic. And yet the pandemic is a disaster of such huge magnitude that the need for this commitment to being a caring community has only gotten bigger. The loneliest epidemic has only gotten worse. So we are called to reach out and to keep reaching out. Whether we're the lonely one, like the invisible boy in the story, who found the key to liberating himself from his loneliness and isolation was to reach out to someone else in need. If we're the lonely person, we need to reach out. And we're called to reach out and to keep reaching out when we're not the lonely person. Those of us who aren't struggling with loneliness, at least not at this moment in our lives, we need to reach out too. So may we be for each other bridges over troubled waters. May it be so, and may we be among those who make it so. Let us ground ourselves in that love. Breathing in love, breathing out love. Breathing in love and breathing out love. I'm going to take just a moment to practice the Tong practice from Tibetan Buddhism. We're going to apply it to loneliness. And first, we want to root ourselves in that calm, abiding love that knows how to transform our suffering into compassion and care. So once again, breathe in love and breathe out love. And from this place, with that foundation of love, we actually make a choice in Tonglen meditation to move towards the suffering. We're going to breathe in that suffering and feel it as a heaviness. Know that it gets transformed by that love, and then breathe out that experience of lightness. Breathe in the heaviness of suffering and breathe out lightness, compassion, and care. I invite you now to call to mind someone who might be feeling lonely and breathe in that loneliness, that hunger, that longing. And then breathe out its antidote. Breathe out embracing love and care and presence. Breathing in that hunger and longing for connection, that loneliness, breathing out that loving, embracing presence. Breathing in loneliness and longing. Breathing out, embracing, loving presence. Breathing in loneliness, longing, feeling that hunger, and then as it's transformed, breathe out, embracing, loving presence. And then just breathe in love and breathe out love. And breathe in love and breathe out love. Tonglen meditation is not an easy practice, so we take just a moment with it this morning. And then we ground ourselves again in love. Amen, 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 and blessed be.
I have a reading, thoughts from Raymond Bogum. Human encounter is common. Human acceptance is rare. Religious community is people reaching through all the facades people carefully place around them, people embracing people where they live and struggle, what Henry Nelson Wieman calls creative interchange. The most radical contribution religion can make to human living is that it enables people to experience community as starkly as hunger. Where life has a chance, We are in caring and mutual need. When we are most alive, we are in the presence of someone or something intensely with us. Nothing's experienced except in relation. It is participation in a religious community that stabs our consciousness into this awareness in the midst of a society that knows nothing about it.
There is a lot of dancing in the video for Whitney Houston's 1987 hit song, I Want to Dance with Somebody. It's happening all around her, but Whitney isn't dancing. In fact, the only time we see Whitney dancing with someone else, really dancing with someone else, is in a film reel, the kind you would get from an old-time photo booth, suggesting perhaps that the connection was in the past or an idealization in her imagination. The set of the video is sparse, a hint of a room with a small table, a chair, and a window frame hanging in the air. There's a moment when we see Whitney standing behind the window, as if she's looking in from the outside, unable to join the dancing. What an emblem. What an icon of loneliness, standing at the window, looking in, unable to reach the thing you so desire. Loneliness is a hunger. We feel it as a physical need. And if you take away the jauntiness of the tune, there's something profoundly vulnerable in this song, in so starkly naming that hunger that is loneliness by singing out, I want to dance with somebody. I want to dance with somebody who loves me. Often, standing at that window, looking in, unable to reach what you so desire, and calling out vulnerably is what loneliness feels like. Like we're reaching out and no one is there to respond. It can even feel like begging for connection. Now, earlier on, I pointed out the systemic nature of loneliness. There is absolutely no reason to experience shame if you are struggling with loneliness. And yet, loneliness can be a downward spiral that once it gets rolling, takes on a life of its own, with the loneliness itself increasing both the experience and the perception of loneliness. There is also an upward spiral that can be set into motion. Here's what the Making Caring Common Project has to say about these two spirals. Loneliness experts underscore the importance of conveying the message that lonely people need to reach out to others, even if it's the last thing we feel like doing. This pill will be hard to swallow for many lonely people, given that lonely people, as our findings suggest, often already perceive themselves as reaching out to other people more than other people reach out to them. But the encouragement to reach out may be far more effective if it includes the message that alerts lonely people to self-defeating tendencies, such as the message that lonely people are often too critical of themselves and of others, and too prone to expect rejection. These are the keys to sparking the upward spiral in two straightforward, though not necessarily easy, actions. Reach out to others and reframe the negativity that loneliness brings with it. Reach out to others. Do exactly what the song does. Sing out. Say, I want to dance with somebody. I want to connect. I want to feel that you're listening and connecting with me, and I want to listen and connect with you too. Even though when you're lonely, you don't feel like reaching out often, or you feel like you're reaching out more than others, reach out. Seek out social connection, reach out and keep reaching out. The other key is to talk back to your inner critic. Once loneliness gets a hold of you for any number of reasons that are almost always beyond your control, maybe you moved to a new place, or a spouse or close friend has died, or you're living through a global pandemic that reduces your avenues for social connection. Whatever it is, once loneliness gets a hold of you, loneliness itself makes us more critical, both of ourselves and of others. So we need to talk back to that voice. When that voice says there's something wrong with us, we need to tell it that that's just not true. When the voice of loneliness says others are rejecting us, not reaching out as much as we are, not giving the kind of support we really need, we need to talk back to that voice. We need to say to that voice, that's just not true. If you're struggling really deeply with loneliness, I want to encourage you to consider reaching out to a therapist, because a therapist can give you the tools to name these distortions in your thinking and show you how to reframe them. Now, this reflection isn't really about dancing, but even though it isn't really about dancing, dancing does have some wisdom to offer us about connecting with each other. In the improvisational social dance form known as contact improvisation, a kind of a cross between Aikido and ballroom dancing, everything begins with what's called the point of contact. Now, I'm not being flowery or abstract. The point of contact is where one body touches, comes into contact with another body. I'm suggesting we use that as a metaphor for the place where you can connect with another person. And that point of contact moves. In contact improvisation, it's called a rolling point of contact because it literally rolls across the skin of the body. The hands touch and then roll up the arms, and then someone's back is laid out on someone else's back, and one person's body is arching up into the sky, the other, the solid table below them. And then the rolling continues, and they're simply sitting together in a moment of quiet, back to back, in that moment of rest or expectation or both, until one body slides and rolls down again and the other arches over them, reaching up towards the sky with one arm, their feet leaving the ground for just a moment. And then there's a flurry of motion as the support person rises to their feet and the other person adjusts, finding their feet on the floor again, winding their body down for a moment before both spiral together, ending in an embrace, teetering together at that new precipice. And the dance might finish there or it might continue. The point is the point of contact, the moment of connection that is sustained through the journey, through the creative interchange. Each person engaging in an authentic individual exploration that only exists because there is another body to lean into, to share weight with. For our purposes, this dance of the rolling point of contact is a symbol for how we can choose the focus of our attention, prioritizing the point of contact, prioritizing that action of connecting with another, and then following the flow of that connection wherever that connection might lead, including when it leads us through moments of quiet rest or moments of longing or moments of grief. We connect, sometimes sharing tentatively, like a light touch in a dance. And we connect at other times, letting the other person know that we can bear the weight of whatever pain or huge joy or big loneliness or aching longing, whatever it is that they're feeling, who connect and let them know that we can support that weight. Building a bridge to each other with each movement. That's a quote from poet Hanif Abdurraqib, who wasn't talking about contact improvisation when he said that, or even a conversation of deep listening and empathy, but still the phrase captures what we're after. Giving our attention to the rolling point of contact, to the place of connection, building a bridge to each other with each movement. Now, practically speaking, we're not engaging in the physical conversation of contact improvisation. Instead, we're using words, along with our body language and our vocal tone, to connect with each other. And there are foundational skills that can help us follow that rolling point of conversation, of connection, of contact. The Making Caring Common project shares some skills, names some skills for mitigating loneliness, calling them the skills that are at the heart of caring friendships. These skills are the capacity to ask questions and listen, to check for understanding, to identify feelings in oneself and in others, and to respond sensitively to difficult feelings in others. When we say or sing out, "I want to dance with somebody who loves me," this is what we mean. We want to be listened to be understood, to have our feelings validated, and to be responded to with care and compassion. It's a dance that certainly isn't going to be smooth and graceful all the time. It's a dance that's going to have some bumps, some hiccups, even some small collisions. The key is to reach out, to open up and share your vulnerability, and then to receive the care and compassion that the dance brings. Not a perfect care and compassion, but an imperfect love from human beings who are, just like all of us, still learning to dance with somebody who loves us. May it be so, and may we be among those who make it so. Amen, 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 and blessed be.
Though we will extinguish our chalice flame, we will carry within us what we have kindled, the light of inspiration, warmth of compassion, the fire of commitment. May we bring these gifts into our lives and share them radiantly out into the world. I invite you now to join me in our community blessing with these words by David Bumbaugh. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time, death, and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity.
Our benediction this morning is from the Reverend Scott Taylor. Today we return to the shelter of each other, to arms that hold us in the midst of the storm, to voices that help us hear our own, to hearts that accept us for who we are. May we be for each other a source of safety and sending. May we offer each other both comfort and challenge. May this place of peace lead us to share peace with others.